Welcome back to True Lens. This is going to be an interesting one, so let's begin. In December 2021, a seemingly innocuous piece of news set off a series of alarms in Japan. Russia, without much fanfare, deployed a new wave of Bastion missiles on Matwa Island, a speck of land in the Kuril Islands chain. This island sits just 450 miles from Japan's shores, a stone's throw in military term. To many in Japan, the announcement was nothing short of an escalation. These missiles are no joke. They could easily strike major cities in Japan, leaving devastation in their wake. But was this move a genuine threat? Or was it part of a larger geopolitical chess game where Japan wasn't the only player involved? Japan's defense posture had to adjust immediately. After all, Russia's military might is enormous, ranking second globally. The Bastion missiles themselves are designed to be both a defensive and offensive tool, capable of targeting ships, submarines, and land installations with remarkable accuracy. These missiles, stationed on an island that's in direct proximity to Japan, raised immediate question. What exactly was Russia trying to achieve with this new deployment? Were they signaling a shift in regional priorities, or simply flexing their muscles on the world stage? On the surface, it seemed like a clear threat. Russia was displaying its power in a region where Japan already felt the weight of its security challenges. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, things aren't quite as simple as they seem. Russia's military prowess, though impressive, faces significant challenges that could complicate any action against Japan. For one, Russia is already heavily engaged in Ukraine, draining resources, manpower, and attention from other theaters, including the Pacific. A new front with Japan, a country that's no slouch militarily itself, would stretch Russia too thin. Japan's economy alone, with a GDP of over $4 trillion, is nearly double that of Russia's $2 trillion. Any military campaign against Japan would require a level of investment Russia couldn't easily afford, especially while it's embroiled in other conflicts. But the situation isn't purely about economics. It's also about alliances. Japan has long understood that security threats don't just come from isolated sources. Russia, despite its logistical constraints, isn't acting alone. Its growing relationship with China complicates matters further. The two countries, historically at odds, have found common ground in recent years. This budding partnership has the potential to shift the balance of power in the region, especially when it comes to military capabilities. If Russia and China were to coordinate their military actions in the Pacific, Japan's security would be facing a much more formidable challenge. And yet, even in the face of these looming threats, Japan's defense priorities remain heavily focused on deterrence and strategic alliances. Japan's role as an economic powerhouse has always played a key role in its security strategy. Rather than aggressively pursuing nuclear weapons or escalating regional conflicts, Japan has been more focused on strengthening its global alliances, particularly with the United States. These alliances serve not only as a deterrent against potential threats from Russia and China, but also as a means of ensuring Japan's security while avoiding direct confrontation. However, not everyone within Japan agrees on how best to respond to growing tensions. Some, particularly in the post-World War II generation, advocate for a pacifist approach, arguing that Japan should avoid escalating conflicts altogether. This ideological divide often comes to the forefront when discussions about Japan's military posture arise. While Japan is undoubtedly bolstering its defense capabilities in response to external threats, it's doing so within the bounds of its constitution, which has long prohibited military aggression. The delicate balance between maintaining a robust defense force and adhering to pacifist principles is one that Japan continues to navigate. But even this delicate balance is starting to shift. Japan's recent military upgrades are not just about staying prepared. They're about preparing for a future where regional power dynamics have changed. The strategic importance of the Kuril Islands, for instance, cannot be ignored. While Russia and Japan have been in a long-standing dispute over the ownership of these islands, the real concern lies in how this conflict could evolve as military technologies advance, and as Japan continues to enhance its military capabilities, particularly in response to North Korea's growing missile threats. The country is slowly but surely rethinking its role in the regional security architecture. For now, Japan's actions seem to be driven by necessity rather than aggression. Its recent acquisitions of advanced weapon systems, like the F-35B stealth fighter jets, are intended to ensure that it can defend itself effectively without provoking unnecessary conflict. But in a region as volatile as East Asia, every military decision, no matter how defensive in nature, has the potential to spark broader geopolitical tension. As Japan carefully evaluates its options, one thing is clear: the island nation is no longer content to rely solely on diplomatic solutions. It understands that its survival in an increasingly unpredictable world requires both economic strength and military readiness. With the growing influence of Russia and China, combined with the unpredictable nature of North Korea, Japan's security landscape is rapidly evolving, and the coming years will determine just how prepared Japan is to face the challenges ahead. While Japan is strengthening its defenses, a far more dangerous and unpredictable player looms to the west: North Korea. Unlike Russia or China, North Korea's military military capabilities are not measured in numbers alone, but in the unpredictable behavior of its leadership. Kim Jong-un, North Korea's leader, has taken a far more aggressive stance than his predecessors. Despite being a far weaker nation militarily and economically compared to Japan, North Korea's nuclear arsenal and missile technology make it a serious concern for Japan. The unpredictability of Kim Jong-un and his regime amplifies the threat. In October 2022, North Korea conducted a ballistic missile test that passed over Japan's Tohoku region. This was not a mere demonstration of force. It was a direct challenge. This missile test could have ended catastrophically. Had the missile malfunctioned or veered off course, it could have crashed into a populated area, resulting in mass casualties. This was a stark reminder that North Korea's missile tests, while typically not armed with nuclear warheads, are capable of devastating damage. A failed missile test, given the missile's speed, weight, and fuel, could still create havoc in a major city. The test served as a stark demonstration of North Korea's growing missile capabilities and the very real risk they pose to Japan. But North Korea's missile tests are only part of the equation. The country is working diligently to advance its nuclear capabilities. In 2024, it was reported that North Korea had built up a stockpile of 50 nuclear weapons. While this number may seem modest compared to the nuclear arsenals of other nations, it's the potential for rapid escalation that worries Japan. As North Korea continues to develop longer-range missiles, the risk of a missile reaching Japan becomes more probable. The real danger, however, lies not just in the number of missiles North Korea possesses, but in the political and military support the country receives from Russia and China. North Korea's relationship with Russia has been growing steadily. The alliance, although somewhat unconventional, could have disastrous consequences for Japan. Just months before the 2024 missile test, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited North Korea, solidifying the two countries' military pact. According to the agreement, both countries pledged to offer immediate military assistance if either faces armed aggression. While it's unclear what this assistance might entail, the presence of Russian military might, alongside North Korea's already formidable missile arsenal, is a scenario Japan can hardly afford to ignore. In addition, China's role in supporting North Korea cannot be overstated. Beijing has long been North Korea's most significant ally, providing economic and military aid that has allowed Kim Jong-un to continue developing his missile and nuclear program. While China has been cautious in its official statements regarding North Korea's activities, its support, whether tacit or active, has enabled Pyongyang to maintain its missile and nuclear programs without facing the full brunt of international sanctions. The combination of these two powerful nations backing North Korea significantly amplifies the risk for Japan. The situation becomes even more dangerous when you consider North Korea's missile technology. In 2019, Japan reported that North Korea had tested projectiles resembling Russia's Iskander missiles. These advanced missiles have a range of up to 600 kilometers, sufficient to reach almost every major Japanese city. This kind of missile technology puts Japan directly in the crosshairs of a potential North Korean strike, further complicating the already tense situation in the region. Beyond the missiles and nuclear threat, North Korea's growing surveillance capabilities pose another challenge. In November 2023, North Korea launched its first-ever spy satellite, capable of gathering intelligence on Japan and improving North Korea's missile targeting capabilities. This satellite, dubbed a silent eye in the sky, gives North Korea a much more precise and dangerous ability to track Japanese military movements and civilian infrastructure. The added intelligence capabilities give Kim Jong-un's regime a much clearer view of potential targets in Japan, heightening the risk of an unexpected strike. Yet despite the rising threats from Russia and North Korea, Japan's strategic response has remained relatively measured. Japan is not reacting in a knee-jerk manner. Instead, it has been steadily increasing its defense capabilities to counter both the missile and nuclear threats posed by North Korea. Japan's defense strategy involves strengthening its missile defense systems, developing cutting-edge technologies like space-based security units, and improving its cyber defense mechanism. Japan is also investing in amphibious warfare capabilities, preparing to deploy forces rapidly in the event of a regional conflict. But perhaps Japan's most pressing concern lies in its vulnerability to economic pressures. China's dominance in global trade means that any diplomatic breakdown between Japan and China could send shockwaves through the global economy. Given the deep trade ties between the two nations, any military escalation would have devastating consequences not only for Japan, but for the global supply chain, particularly in industries like electronics and energy. In this context, Japan must tread carefully, balancing its defense needs with the necessity of maintaining economic stability in an increasingly volatile region. As Japan watches the shifting alliances between North Korea, Russia, and China, it knows that it cannot afford to remain passive. The geopolitical landscape of East Asia is transforming, and Japan's security strategy must evolve to meet these new threats head-on. Japan's defense posture is no longer merely about deterrence. It's about ensuring that the country country can stand firm in the face of the growing military, political, and economic pressures in the region. But the real question remains, with all these threats emerging from multiple directions, how far is Japan willing to go to ensure its security? As the strategic environment shifts, Japan finds itself at a critical juncture. Its growing defense capabilities are not just a reaction to immediate threats, but a long-term strategy to assert its role in regional security. By 2027, Japan aims to have developed military systems that could handle direct threats independently, with support from its allies, especially the United States. However, Japan's efforts to rearm have not been without controversy. The nation's move to strengthen its military has stirred internal debates, with a notable portion of the population historically opposed to rearmament. Japan's post-World War II constitution, which includes a pacifist clause, has been a cornerstone of its identity. For decades, Japanese citizens have largely accepted the idea of a defense force, but not an offensive military. Yet, as the international landscape grows more unstable, the debate about rearmament has shifted. Today, Japan faces a public that is divided on the issue of its growing military presence. In the 1950s, Prime Minister Yoshida faced immense pressure from the U.S. to strengthen Japan's military. This tension led to a political gridlock, with left-wing parties and those sympathetic to communist ideologies pushing against any form of military buildup. Japan's pacifist stance remained largely intact. However, after decades of relative peace, the evolving threats posed by North Korea and China have led to a slow but inevitable shift in public opinion. The increasing frequency of missile tests by North Korea, the military posturing from China, and the strategic concerns over Russia's growing military ties with North Korea have pushed Japan's leaders to reconsider their stance on defense. Japan's decision to invest in advanced military technologies, such as F-35B stealth fighter jets, highlights the changing security priorities. The F-35B's unique design, which allows for short takeoffs and vertical landings, provides Japan with significant advantages in terms of mobility and evading enemy radar. Japan's plan to acquire 42 F-35Bs by 2029 underscores its commitment to modernizing its air force. These fighter jets will not only serve as a deterrent, but will also play a critical role in Japan's evolving defense posture, particularly in light of the growing threat from North Korea's missile capabilities and China's expanding military influence. Additionally, Japan's focus on missile defense is another key element of its evolving strategy. The country has committed to acquiring long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles, which are designed to strike deep into Chinese territory. This investment in offensive missile capabilities shows Japan's desire to proactively counter any potential threats from its neighbors. Japan's decision to fortify its southern islands with new military bases, supported by the U.S., is part of a broader strategy to ensure that its territory remains secure, particularly against the backdrop of rising tensions in the South China Sea and beyond. Japan's strategy is not limited to its own shores. In the event of a regional conflict, Japan plans to rely on its alliances, particularly with the United States, to bolster its defense capabilities. The U.S.-Japan security partnership remains a cornerstone of Japan's defense strategy, with the two countries conducting joint military exercises and sharing intelligence. However, Japan's growing reliance on military strength raises questions about the long-term implications for regional stability. While Japan's military modernization is a direct response to the increasing threats it faces, it also marks a significant shift in the country's post-war identity. The decision to embrace a more assertive military posture reflects the harsh realities of a world where strategic threats cannot be ignored. Japan's defense buildup is not about pursuing aggressive actions, but ensuring its ability to defend itself in a rapidly changing global environment. Yet, the path forward remains uncertain. Japan's defense investments are still in their early stages, and the ultimate outcome of its rearmament efforts is yet to be seen. The tension between the need for stronger defense and the desire to maintain Japan's pacifist identity will continue to shape political discourse within the country. As Japan prepares to face an increasingly complex security environment, the question remains, will Japan's military modernization be enough to deter potential threats, or will it further exacerbate the tensions in East Asia? The future of Japan's security strategy depends on its ability to balance military strength with diplomacy. While rearmament may offer Japan the ability to defend itself, it must also navigate the delicate balance between strengthening its military and maintaining peaceful relations with its neighbors. Japan's evolving defense posture will not only shape the future of its security, but could have far-reaching implications for regional and global stability. Ultimately, the path Japan takes in the coming years will determine whether it becomes a military superpower or remains a staunch advocate for peace in an increasingly volatile world. Japan's future security strategy may not only influence its national defense, but will also play a critical role in shaping the broader dynamics of the Indo-Pacific region and the international order as a whole.